Crowds of shoppers were not packed into the warehouse store Tlivy. Slogan: The Mart with Heart in Your Cart. Probably because I chose to go there on a Monday evening. I bet most people were at home, eating dinner or loading the dishwasher, normal people activities, which was a contrast to my evening. I walked through the store's aisles, flanked by tall shelving units. The merchandise was kept in order, an inventory of the foodstuffs we need to survive, and other items useful for quality living, like light bulbs. My list was typical of a single guy in his mid-20s: frozen meals, beer, cereal, and so on. After many trips to Tlivy, I had learned the locations of the items I wanted. My navigation around the store was efficient. Finished with my list, I pushed my cart to the self-checkout row because the few people in the cashier lines had grocery carts piled high with stuff. I was scanning my items when a guy went to the self-checkout machine next to me. As the guy scanned the first item, I couldn't help overhearing the machine give the instruction.
Place the 5 pounds of garlic in the bagging area.
That was followed by the machine's instructions for the guy's other items.
Package of 3 crosses. Claw hammer with ergonomic grip. Claw hammer with ergonomic grip. Package of 12 pre-sharpened wooden stakes. Package of 24 cans of cherry-flavored Zoom Zing Extreme.
Slogan: Life's too rad to sleep. At times, when you're at the self-checkout area, you overhear odd assortments scanned by a customer, like pickles, shaving cream, and a birthday card. You figure the customer simply needs those items. However, this guy's assortment struck me as pretty darn strange. My glance to the side showed the guy had stubble on his cheeks and a determined look in his eye. An image jolted in my mind. A mansion, nighttime. A dashing gentleman dressed in a suit opened the door to the mansion. The dashing gentleman welcomed the self-checkout guy into the mansion. The gentleman supposed the self-checkout guy was a lost traveler in need of assistance. Also, the gentleman saw the self-checkout guy as a potential blood bank for dinner. But the gentleman didn't realize the self-checkout guy's purpose for being there, because the self-checkout guy knew the gentleman was actually a vampire, and the self-checkout guy was armed to the teeth to take him down. The image blinked off in my mind, and a wild curiosity made me consider asking my self-checkout neighbor if he needed help with his mission. But of course he needed help. All the help he could get. I argued with myself that the risk wasn't worth the reward of seeing events unfold if I joined the guy into battle with a vampire. I mean, come on. The risk was getting ripped apart by the vampire. Also, you need to understand that I'm the kind of person who takes a long time to consider if I want to help a friend move apartments. They're a friend and all, but do I really want to lift heavy furniture for them? Anyway, I figured that a beat-up old SUV was in Tlivy's parking lot. Inside the SUV sat a woman and a man. They were waiting for the self-checkout guy to get supplies. Neither the woman or the man talked as they watched people pushing grocery carts to their cars. Maybe my guess was right about helpers waiting in the parking lot. Or maybe I was wrong, and I made that up so I'd feel better about not volunteering to join this gang in their mission. Good luck to you, I said to the self-checkout guy. He nodded, and his eyes looked weary. Thanks, man. If you believe in God, pray for me. My position about believing in God was back and forth, up and down. But I said, I will. As I left the store and drove to my apartment complex, I thought about the possibilities of what could have happened with the self-checkout guy. What if I was wrong about my vision of the enemy? Clichés weren't always correct. The enemy didn't have to be a dashing vampire whose appearance didn't show the evil inside him. Rather, the enemy could have been a hideous thing with a ghoul face and gleaming fangs. But there was also a good chance that the self-checkout guy was delusional. If I had joined his mission, I might have dealt with the ravings of a madman. When I got to my apartment, I put away the groceries and had a normal night of watching TV. Ho hum. Still, I said a prayer for the man. Well, I thought the prayer instead of saying it out loud. 32 years have passed since that night. 32 years with marriage and buying a house and raising 2 kids. Now and then I remember the self-checkout guy. I've wondered what I would have witnessed if I had gone with him in his hunt for a vampire. You want to know something? When I think about it, even if the self-checkout guy was delusional, I would have had a memorable night. I would have had a story that I could tell at parties. People would have been entertained by that story. I am sure of it. And yet, during the years since that night, I can't shake the notion that the vampire was real. Actually and truly real. And if I had joined the hunt for the monster, I would have witnessed the extraordinary. I would have participated in a spectacular battle. I've pictured how that night could have gone differently. I could have driven to a church and convinced the caretaker to accept my donation of cash in exchange for some holy water. I could have thrown that on the vampire and enjoyed its howls of pain. Then I had the idea that I could have bought a Neptune's Strike Force water cannon. Slogan: every shot's like a monsoon hitting 'em. I would have filled the gun's tank with holy water. I would have held the gun like they do in the movies. I would have screamed for the vampire to finally die, after the untold number of centuries it had inflicted terror upon humanity. If that scenario had actually played out, my confidence would have skyrocketed. The self-checkout guy and his possible buddies in an SUV would have gone to my apartment to drink beer in celebration of destroying the vampire. We would have become friends who bonded over a horrible yet rewarding experience. But that never happened because of my choice that night. My choice to not join the battle. I've regretted it ever since, for the man I could have been.